All right, welcome back to ABA Exam Review and our BCBA task list series, where we're continuing with concepts and principles, motivating operations. Now, motivating operations are tricky at first, but we don't want to overthink them. They're essential to identifying antecedents because they really go hand in hand with SDs and can be very easily confused with discriminative stimuli. That's really what we're going to be talking about, the two different types of motivating operations and what they do. So as always, check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. All right. MOs, motivating operations, are antecedent events which alter the value of consequences and change current behavior. Remember, MOs have two effects. So if we have an MO and we have an establishing operation, okay, we also have potentially an evocative effect, right? So with the EO, okay, that's the consequence or the reinforcer being changed value, and the evocative effect is going to be changing the behavior. So MOs can increase or decrease the value of a consequence, value altering. MOs can evoke or abate behavior temporarily, behavior altering. This keyword temporarily is important to remember because MOs don't impact permanent change. They're temporary alterations in either the value of consequences or in current behavior. So remember that. These are temporary. Now, what you really want to remember when distinguishing between MOs and SDs, MOs make you want or not want something. SDs signal availability. That is a very simplistic way to look at it, but it's a good way to think about it. When an MO is present, it's affecting the consequence, and it's really altering, do you want that thing or do you not, right? It's altering the value of that consequence. The SD is telling you, is the consequence available? You can want something, but without an SD, there's no signal for availability. So you have to remember that distinction. MOs make you want, not want. SD signal availability. When a motivating operation evokes a behavior, that behavior is changed A, permanently, B, only in the present moment, C, permanently in the presence of that MO, or D, none of the above. Remember, motivating operations temporarily change behavior. So behavior is only changed in the present moment. It is not a permanent change. We call those function altering effects when behavior is changed permanently. All right, establishing operations and evocative effects. So MOs can establish a consequence and increase its value temporarily. Call it an establishing operation. The value of a consequence is temporarily increased. Often deprivation is associated with EOs. So when you're not getting enough of a stimulus, it increases in value. Race and you're dehydrated, you need water. Have your favorite meal for a while, you want your meal. You haven't seen a friend in a long time. Being deprived is typically associated with EOs because the value of the consequence increases. So it increases the effectiveness of a reinforcer temporarily, and then EOs are related to evocative effects, and it makes sense when you think about it. When we establish a consequence and the value of the consequence is increased, what's going to happen? Well, behavior is going to occur to gain that consequence. So evocative effects occur when a reinforcer is established, and then behavior temporarily increases or is temporarily evoked. So again, EOs of value altering. Evocative effects are behavior altering, and they're both temporary. So along the same vein, MOs can abolish a consequence and decrease its value. When the consequence is abolished and its value is decreased, we call that an abolishing operation. Satiation is temporarily associated with AOs because the more you get something, the less valuable it becomes. So it decreases the effectiveness of a reinforcer temporarily. But just like with EOs, if the reinforcer is less effective, what's going to happen? Well, the behavior is going to occur less often temporarily. So abative effects occur when a reinforcer is abolished and behavior temporarily decreases or is abated. So your AO is value, and abative is behavior. Which of the following represents satiation? So getting too much. A, Lewis drinks 10 beers on Saturday night and doesn't drink again for 3 days. Sure, Lewis is satiated on beer. B, Bobby takes an 8-hour road trip without stopping once to stretch. Well, Bobby's deprived of stretching, not satiated. C, James works out for 2 hours yesterday and completes his goal for the day, so he doesn't work out the rest of the day. James is satiated on working out. Which of the following represents satiation? Well, both A and C. So other things to remember, MOs come before SDs, so our 4-term contingency, okay, 4-term would be MO, SD, response, consequence. Remember, MOs make you want, not want. SD, signal availability. There can be an SD present signaling availability with no MO. There can also be an MO with no SD. If I see a commercial and I really want what's on the commercial, it might not be available to me because there's no SD. So MOs are temporary, right? SDs signal something is available, which in turn leads to a response, which in turn leads to a consequence. Now, non-contingent reinforcement manipulates MOs. The most common really is attention-related non-contingent reinforcement, trying to act as an abolishing operation for attention-seeking behavior. Okay, condition motivating operations. My advice to you is to study these last. Do not spend a whole lot of time on them. They're complicated, needlessly complicated. You're not going to use them a lot in practice, and they're going to tend to confuse you. So I would recommend, if you don't really understand CMOs, save them for last. Okay, so you have 3. You have transitive, surrogate, reflexive. Reflexive is typically the easiest because it signals a situation is getting better or worse. So it's usually a signal to avoid or escape. So when you get a scenario mentioning condition motivating operations and the scenario involves the scenario getting better or worse, it tends to be reflexive. Surrogate is when a stimulus is paired with another MO. Think about pairing. So if you run a race and you're really thirsty, that's the deprivation is the MO, and it starts to pair with other things in the environment. And maybe going back to that environment makes you thirsty, even if you haven't ran the race. The surrogate MO, it's just pairing one stimulus with an already existing MO. And then transitive establishes the need for another stimulus. The most common example is a lock, which needs a key. Lock establishes the need for the key. Again, if you don't necessarily understand CMOs, don't confuse yourself with them. Study everything else and then come back to these. Okay, that's provide examples of motivating operations. Again, let's keep it very simple with MOs. We don't want to overcomplicate things. We don't want to make them harder than they are and give more weight than what they're worth. All right, they're simply part of our 4-term contingency. They affect consequences. They affect behavior. There's to it. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all our study materials. As always, like, subscribe. Let us know when you pass. Hard. Study hard. See you soon.